everyone, this is Joseph Propati, and today this is my third video in the series for my game, The 19th Hole. This video, the third one, is going to cover putting from 12 feet or less. Now the two previous ones, if you watch them, one was for tee shots and fairway shots using your clubs, and then the second one was for putting 30 feet or less, and then this is the one that kind of comes in if you do a 30-foot putt and it doesn't make it into the hole and your putt is less than 12 feet or less, you'll come to this. Or you chip on and you're 12 feet or less, then you immediately go right to this 12 feet or less putting. So this will finalize it. The three videos should explain everything you need to know of how to play. And what I hoped for these videos is that I know the rules might be a little difficult or seem a little overwhelming, but it is very easy when you watch this video of how putting works. Just like all the shots in the 19th hole. It's about setting up where the ball is and then making the putt. That is basically two phases. You're going to roll, you're going to find out where the ball is laying on the green, and then you will roll again, and then depending on your experience, to manipulate the dice to try and match the angle of approach and match the distance. That's it. That's really how deep you have to get into the shot. Where it gets into it, and where I think the fun and the challenge is manipulating the dice to get to the pin. There's a lot of factors that go in. There's distance to the pin, there's slope of the green, whether it's a left to right or right to left, there's angle of approach. You know, what is the slope, uphill, downhill? That angle of approach, where do you have a slight draw right to left? It's things like that where once you have those factors, the dice roll is what's going to be manipulated. And the skill level, the more dice you get based on your skill level, helps you with that manipulation. So let's get into this, and let's just show you that it's very simple. But right now, let me show you what you need. So just first, I use a plexiglass. I just get a piece of plexiglass, Home Depot, doesn't matter, 1/8 inch, just so you can lay it on the cards that you don't want to move. Like you don't want the green in your shot preparation or your putt preparation card to move. They'll always be stationary, which is nice. You can lay your cards on top of it. So that's why I use it. I can put my reference sheet under it. It makes it a lot easier, so I recommend that. So component-wise, we definitely need all the dice. It's a dice and card game, so we need 3 blue, 3 red, and 3 green. Those are the only dice you need. I use a 12 millimeter because they fit the cards a little better. Then any color cube you want, little 8 or 10 millimeter, and you just put it right on the whatever experience level you're at. Then I use these 3 cubes. Now I use red, green, and blue because they match distance, slope, and angle, and that's your references. So makes it a little bit easier. Those are a little 8 millimeter or 10 millimeter, doesn't matter. You need your reference sheet, and we want to make sure that this is for 12 feet or less. Okay, and then the cards, you need your green card on the green, and make sure it says 12 feet or less. You know, it has a 12, nothing higher than 12. And again, your putt preparation. There's a shot preparation and a putt preparation. Make sure you got that one, the putt. And then the cards you'll be using on top of the acrylic are your aim card. Okay, you won't be using any of these factors on it. It's really just for the alignment and distance to the pin. Okay, these 2 cards, your putter and your angle of approach, make sure they say under 12 feet because there is a under 30 feet. So you need your putter and your angle of approach, and these are the only components you need when you're doing 12 foot or less putting. Okay, so in this video I want to show all the different experiences. So I'm going to kind of go through the first one kind of slow, and then I'm going to go through the other ones a little bit quicker because I want to show you how the modifiers affect each time. So, and what people think is when I'm moving the angle of approach and putter, it's like, wow, that seems, you know, difficult or hard. No, I'm going to show you it's going to be very easy. So again, when you're doing the shot, setting up where the ball is, just like in teeing off or hitting a club shot, you only use 6 dice. You use 2 green, 2 red, and 2 blue, okay? That's always what's used to set up where the ball is, right? So we're gonna go ahead and roll that, and we wanna find out where the ball is on the green. So, we go ahead and put these in their place. All right, so we got a very short putt on this one. Now we just take these values and put them onto our reference card. So we always start with distance first. So we have 4 on our dice. 4 means 4 feet. Green, we have an 8. So this is going to give us the slope of the green. So 8 is a straight or a slight downhill, which means it gives you a -2 modifier. Now, I'll explain what this is later, but basically it's going to come off the distance dice that you roll. So remember this because it will come up later. And then blue, we have a 4, and a 4 means we have a slight draw, which is a slight draw from left to right. And that will affect how the ball is rolling on the green, whether it goes right to left or left to right. Because if you had a 7, you would go, basically it's just a nice flat green, and you'd be hitting right to the hole. So those parameters give you where the ball is laying on the green. So we know that we're going to take our aim card. We have 4 feet, so we just go ahead and slide that right up to where the 4-foot marker is, like that. Okay, try and keep that same center line. Then we want to look at angle of approach. Remember, this will come up later. So angle of approach, we have a 4. Now this is where your putter and your angle of approach card come in. So first, we always lay down our putter card and just butt it up right to the edge. Okay? Now, we have to see, was the angle of approach a right to left, or was it a left to right? So in this case, we rolled a 4, which means it's a slight draw left to right. So easy thing to remember, if it's left to right, you're moving the putter card to the left. If it's right to left, move it to the right. So we're doing left to right, so we will take it off center to the left and just make sure it lines up right along that center line. Then we take our angle of approach card. Okay, we have a 4, remember that. So we go ahead and just put it right next to it. Okay, and since the angle of approach is a 4, all you do is just pick up the card and put it on the red line with a 4. Okay, we're all set up. We know that if you hit it along that line and you did not adjust for the angle of approach, you're going to be off. Okay, so what's critical here is when you're hitting the putt, you need to match a die to what that angle of approach is. We're looking for a 4. Okay, so we know right now we've got everything set up. We got our distance, angle of approach, and we know what our modifier is. And I'll explain how that modifier works. So let's now make the putt. That's all there was to setting up where the ball is. Now, when you're trying to make the putt, you get a number of dice based on your experience level. If you're a beginner, you get 4 dice. Okay? Now, it doesn't matter on the dice, the color. You just grab 4 dice. If you were inexperienced, or if you were experienced or professional, right, or intermediate, if you were intermediate, you'd get 5 dice. If you were experienced, you'd get 6 dice. And if you were professional, you get 7 dice. And those extra dice are going to allow you to do more manipulation with the dice. So, once we know we're a beginner and we have 4 dice, we go ahead and roll those dice. So now we roll them, and I like to set them up low to high. Okay? Now, here's where the first phase comes in of making your putt. First thing you have to do is match that angle of approach, which means you read the green, you saw how the ball was going to roll, you adjusted to how that angle of approach was. If you rolled a 4, you're going to be right on line, and you're going to adjust your putt back to getting it back on line. We're going to take a dice from this, but we didn't roll a 4, unfortunately. So what we have to do is just try and get the closest one. This 3 is going to be the closest one. The problem is you're not going to be on line to make this putt. You might be close. It's possible, because the closer you get to the pin, remember we're only 4 feet away, that variation of angle of approach might get smaller and smaller and smaller. So if you were like 2 feet away, even if you were 1 off, you still might make it, because you just got to be within that cup hole. So we are 1 off, and the way this works is we take our angle of approach, all right, and we are going to lay it on the 3. Okay, just lay it right on top, find the 3 on here, and now what happens is if we had rolled a 4, we'd lay it on the 4. When you adjust it back, and here's what you do, you now slide it back to what it was. Okay, and you'll see that we're not on line. We're not, if we were on the hole, you'd see it'd be right on the hole, but we're a little off because we didn't match the angle of approach. Okay, so we're definitely not going to make this putt. We're going to get close. So what we want to at least do is try and get the distance. Okay? If you can get 1 foot or less, the next is going to be a gimme putt. So try and at least get that distance. So now that we know we're close to the angle of approach, we didn't get it. Now we need to manipulate the dice to get the distance, which means we're looking at 4 feet we got to get. But we have to remember there's factors in here. When you're experience level beginner, the only 2 factors you get to use to adjust the dice are doubles and subtraction of a value from the remaining total. So this means that we have a double, and that gives us 1 die that we can physically remove. Okay, and then we have another option is take a value like 2 and subtract it from the remainder. So I would be able to subtract this 2 from 8, or I could subtract this 6 from 4, but now we're looking at a negative, which means you add 2. So you always want to try and be below. You don't want to go into the negative. So this we know that we have a double, so we can remove a dice, or we have 1 ability to subtract a value from the total. But we have this modifier, okay? The modifier comes in after we've used our angle of approach dice. So we have -2. So what we do is we take 2 from this, all right? And we have a total now of 8. Now, we did have this ability where we can remove a dice, right? Because we had a double, and we also get to subtract a value of a die from the remaining total. Well, we can't subtract 6 from 2. We're gonna have 4, which means we're gonna go past the hole, right, when you're in a negative. So what we want to do is we want to subtract this 2 from the 6, right? It's not a remove, and you could do either one because we did have the ability, we had a double, but this one we're going to subtract 2 from 6, which leaves 4, and that means we got the distance of 4 feet, all right? But unfortunately we're offline. So what we do is we take our card, we come to the hole, right? And if we see, we're right on the cup, but we're not in that little circle. If that center line was on that circle, we would sink this putt. But unfortunately, since we didn't match angle of approach, we're just off. But we're at the pin, so our next putt's a gimme. So we had a 2 putt when we're on the green. So that's a beginner, right? I hope that I explained that. So I hope that was understandable. Remember, you rolled to see where the ball is, and then the next roll was to see if you can overcome all those parameters to get the angle of approach and then get the distance. Those are the 2 main things about when you're doing your shot or putt. Okay, so that was a beginner. This guy actually got a 2 putt. So let's go ahead and we'll do it again. But this time we're going to do intermediate. All right, so like before, reset everything. Now I'm going to go a little bit quicker, right? So we go ahead, let's see where the ball is. All right, so we put the dice. And just so you know, if, let's say I had a 10-foot putt and I only went to 4 feet because I only made 6 foot, you would run through this again to try and sink that 4 foot. You can, as a rule, if you can't get it within 3 putts, you can do a, kind of throw in the towel kind of thing. 3 putted or 4 putted, but you can try. But for a beginner, sometimes it's just tough to get a 3 or 4 putt. You just never know. So we're going to do intermediate. Let's set up our parameters. So we have 8, which is an 8-foot putt. So it means it's 8 foot from the pin. We have a 9 for our slope of the green. So 9 is a gradual downhill slope, which means we're going to subtract 3 as a modifier. Okay, that will happen later. And then we have a 7, which is perfect. Direct line means it's a nice flat green right to the hole. Okay, we don't even have to worry about angle of approach except for you need to get a 1. Okay, it's not that you don't have to worry about angle of approach. It just means that if you get a 1, you match the angle of approach, and all you have to do is just worry about the distance. Again, if you can't get that 1, right, you can have a problem. So we know we are 8 foot away. So we put our card on the 8 foot, right? Then we set up our putter card right here, right? So let's go 8, put our card right there, a little sticky. And then we worry about our angle of approach. Since we had a 1, 1's right on line, so you can move it left or right, it doesn't matter, just as long as you're off the line and you just line it up. Okay, so you can see right down to the hole. So now we know where we're at. Let's go ahead and roll to try and make the putt. Okay, intermediate uses 5 dice. Again, don't worry about the color, and I'll explain how the modifiers are for those 5 dice. Okay, so after you roll, again, we like to go low to high. And once you roll, what's the first thing you need? You need to get a dice that matches the angle of approach. Since we have a 1, perfect. We have a 1. Just go ahead and set it up. You're not going to be adjusting anything because you're still right on line. Now we need to make 8 feet. Okay? But we have a modifier, -3. And remember, if you have a plus, it's added to the lowest die. If you have a minus, it's subtracted from the highest. So we have a 5. And also try and remember, any doubles. So since we have a double, we get to remove a dice. And these factors move up from beginner to intermediate, experienced, and professional. Intermediate also gets to use doubles. They also get to subtract a value from the die, but they also get to decide whether they want to use a die or not, because that extra die. So that means they could subtract 2 or even add 2 down, because beginner could only subtract. Now intermediate could use add to the value, take a value of a die and add it to the total, or subtract the value of die from the total. So that's another feature that a inexperienced or intermediate gets. So we have this -3, right? Remember that we get to remove a dice because we have a doubles, but we have to subtract 3 from this. So this brings it to 2. That does not make another double. So, but you can remember that you have a double, so you get to remove 1. Now, we've made our modifier on, we have to get 8 feet. If we can get 8 feet, we can sink this putt. Now, we can remove a dice, and this is going to be perfect because we've got 8 right here. So if I remove this 5, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got 8 feet. Now, since we were on line, this thing goes right to the hole. Sunk the putt. So as an intermediate player, we were able to sink that putt right away. And that's pretty much because we had very close parameters. If this was a 6 and your angle of approach was a 6, you really have to do this. You have to find an angle of approach. And I'll show you how a professional can use 2 dice actually to try and create the angle of approach. Okay, so that was intermediate. Let's go ahead and do the experienced. And we'll set this shot up. All right, so again, reset everything. We're going to do a putt 12 feet or less with the experienced level. So we have red, green, blue. Okay, so let's go ahead and set these up. 6 is 6 feet. All right. 6 for the slope of the green means a slight uphill, which is a +2. And we have 5, which is a +3. It's our left to right, so it's left to right. So what's the first thing we do? Take our aim card, put it at the 6-foot marker, right there. Then we go ahead and put our putter up, right? And then we gotta go to, don't do the modifier yet. We look at our angle of approach. It's a 3, but it's left to right. So remember, left to right means move left. So we shift this to the left, put it right down that line. And since we have a 3 for angle of approach, we use our angle of approach card. We set that right here, right? Just rotate this so it's on the 3. Okay? And now we know we need a 3 to bring that back. Okay? So we have, let's see what we got here. We've got our modifier. So with an experienced player, you get 6 dice. And you'll see that the higher you go up, it's much easier to make these putts because you're better at it. You've been playing longer, you have more experience. So again, roll to see what the ball is, roll again to see what your putt is. Experience, we get 6 dice. All right, so we set up our dice, and we go low to high. And this is kind of good, we got a nice range of dice. All right, so with the experienced player, again, you get an extra dice. Doubles, you get to remove a dice, and then you get 2 chances to add or subtract. Inexperienced, you just got 1 chance to add or subtract, and then beginner, you just get to subtract. So here we look at what do we need first before we add our modifier? We need a 3. Got it. So we take the 3 out, and now we adjust our approach. So if we have a 3, you're going to basically set this right back so it lines up on the 3, which means you're right on line again. So that 3 got you right on line. Okay? So we're good. Now we just got to get our distance. Now this shouldn't be too hard. We've got a lot of dice to modify this. So we have a +2, so pluses go to the lowest die. Okay? We got to remember we have a double, so we get to use that ability to remove a die. So let's up this to a 3. And we'll readjust these. Okay? Now we've made our adjustment for our slope of the green, and now we just need to get that distance. The distance is 6 feet. So we somehow have to get this number down to 6. All right, so we get to remove a dice. So we could remove a 6 if we want. We have a total of 15. We still need to get that down to 6. So we can subtract the value of a dice, which means I could subtract this 6. But I don't want to do that from here because that means that's going to really drop it. So if I subtract, because I can do this twice, like if I subtract 2 from the 3, that would make it 1. That would be 15, and then I could subtract, so I gotta get this down to 6. So if I subtracted, let's do this. Subtract 6 from this total. All right, that would be 9. All right. So instead of just removing a dice, we'll do a subtraction of this total, which means I get down to 9. Now I need to do one more subtraction to get down to a 6. Man, we're not going to make it. So if I take this 2 and go from 7, that's going to be a 5. That would be so close. Is there any other option we can do? If I take a 4 and subtract from 6, alright, that would leave a 2, so that would be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then if I subtracted a 6, it's a 7, so I'm still 1 off. So you can see that you have a lot of ways to manipulate this. Remember, doubles let you remove a dice, and then experience lets you subtract or add 2. So you could subtract a dice, remove this, and then add. So if move this value, that's 10. Take 6 from it. But then you only have 4 left, and you can't add 4. You could do. So what we'll do is we're going to subtract that, or remove this dice. Or I'm sorry, subtract this 6 from the total, which means that's 15. That'll bring us down to 9. And then we will subtract 2 from this and make it a 5. So we go up here, we made it to 1. Now, we didn't sink it, but if you're 1 or less, it's a gimme. So this, again, was a 2-putt. So even an experienced player got a 2-putt. All right. And then we'll do our last one, which is the professional. Okay? So what's the first thing we do? Reset everything. We're going to go ahead and roll our 6 dice like we always do. We have reds, greens, blue, right? As a professional, first thing we do is get our distance. So we have 6 feet, it's a 6-foot putt. Our slope of the green is a 9, which means it's a -3, and then we have an 8 for our angle of approach, which is a 2. All right, so let's set up our aim card. We have 6-foot distance, right? Set up our putter. Remember, it just goes right up to the edge. We look and see what our angle of approach is, and it's a right to left. So right to left means shift it to the right, right? Leave it so it's right on line. Go ahead and put our approach. And since we didn't get a 1, a direct sign, so we have a 2, we are going to shift this to the 2, like that. Pull that out. Okay. And we'll do a modifier later. So now we take, and since you're a professional, you now get 7 dice to roll. You get a lot of factors. And here's what you get when you're a professional. You get to use doubles, which means you can remove a dice for each double. You can add and subtract twice the value of a die from the total remaining. And then you also get to use 2 dice to create, 1 or 2 dice to create the angle of approach. Okay? So let's go ahead and roll these 7. Most of the time you don't need it. As a pro, you can pretty much get a die that has the angle of approach because there's so many. But let's go ahead and set this up. We have our 3s. We got a lot of doubles, which is great. And so 3 of a kind doesn't matter. It's how many doubles you got. You got 1 double, 2 doubles. Doesn't matter that there's 3. So at least we know we can remove 2 dice from this group of dice. And we have a 2, so we just go ahead and take one of these. And how do we set that up? We go ahead and put our angle of approach right back on the 2, okay? Which means when you shift the card back, it's going to be right on line again. So we're right on line, and all we got to do is worry about the distance. So as a pro, you read the green, you saw the slope. Now we have to make our modifier. So we have a minus. Minus means it comes off the highest dice. So 4 is the highest, makes this a 1, which comes down here. Okay, now we need to make a 6. I've got a lot of dice to do this. Now I can remove 2 dice. If I remove this and this leaves us with 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we just got to remove, let's see, if I take 2, I don't want to take 2 from the total. How about if we have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and we want to get down to 6. If I remove, if I take 1, that would leave a 1, so that would be 9. Oh, there we go. So we've removed a dice because we had a double. We're going to subtract 1 from the remaining totals, which means that will be a 1. And then we're going to subtract, so this leaves us with 9, and then we're going to subtract, or we're going to remove another die, which leaves us with 6. Because remember, professional, you get to use each double, which means you get to remove a dice, and you get to add and subtract twice if you want, and also you get to use 2 dice for your angle of approach. But didn't need that. We were able to remove 2 dice and subtract a dice. So that left us with 3, 4, 5, 6. And since we were 6-foot putt, right to the hole. So this pro sunk it. 6-foot putt, come on, pros should be sinking that anyway. So there you go. Now, here's something I want to show that it didn't get shown in here. So as an example, let's say I have, so that just so you can see that those were all the different levels, and they're all, like I said, it's very easy to set up and shoot. But let me show you something. Let's say you had an 11-foot putt, okay? And your angle of approach, let's say was, it was a right to left, so we shift it to the right, okay? And then we had an angle of approach of a 6. Really bad angle of approach. I mean, it's just way off, okay? So this is the line you're looking at right now. Now, let's say you rolled your dice and you could only get low values, okay? Like you rolled, as a beginner, 4 1s. You're like, oh man, I'm only gonna have a 1 to use. So what would happen is you would basically just leave that, since the only way that you would fix this back is you'd have to roll a 6 to get it back online. every one of these that you don't get up to 6 means you're offline. So let's say, even if you had a 2, let's say you could only get a 2, right? You shift this back here, right? You're way off. So this is where the ball is going to go. And these are the line distances. So, right, so let's say we just couldn't get the angle of approach. Now we want to get our distance. So let's say we only got, out of our 11 feet, 5 feet, right? So we would go 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot, 5 foot. And you use this edge, okay? So this is where you're at. And since you want to finish your putt, you could now use this line, okay, to see where you're off. It's just easier. That shows you where you would have been if you'd putted, okay? But it's just kind of easier to bring it back and then line it up. Because once you're on that arc, you're lining up again. But the nice thing about it is you could see where if you were at 11 and you got, let's say, a 9 or an 11-foot putt, if your angle of approach is so far off, okay, and you get down here and you even get an 11-foot putt, but when you end, it's way over here, you still didn't get it. You might be off the 1 foot because you're right there, and you'll still have to do another putt. So it's critical that you make sure that you get your angle of approach, because the farther you are back, the more that range is going to be when you get it over there. So that was all the different things for all the different levels of putting 12 foot or less in my game, the 19th hole. If you have any questions, if something didn't make sense, if it wasn't something that you could understand on all those steps, leave them in the comment section. Let me know, and then I'll answer them right away. But like I said, they're all exactly the same for all the different levels, just you have more dice because you're just better at playing golf. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you need other instructions, go ahead and look at the other 2 videos that cover all the steps. But I really appreciate it, and this is for my game, the 19th hole, which you can find on Board Game Geek, and it's a print and play. So thanks again.